I hope people are doing well today. I am uh, all alone. Nobody's joining tonight yet. Hopefully somebody will. And I apologize when that happens because it seems like things get a little bit boring when nobody's here to talk to. Notice that 5 people have turned in their structures with skin, and I'm very glad for them. I want to go through and look at each of them and critique each of them. It looks like we have the biomorphic carvings due this Sunday, and I am happy to change the timing on that. But what I would like to at least see some progress photos. So I think I'm going to leave that up to just to remind people to work on it. And this week, do what you can to carve and then post the photos that you have. And then I will go through and share those with everybody, and we will talk about them next week. So today I wanted to talk about the structure with the skin and uh, the annotated bibliography. I think most everybody has done a pretty good job with that. Wanted to go through that as well because there's still some that have not been turned in yet. And I am, yeah, it looks like there's about 4 or 5 that haven't been turned in yet. If you are struggling with that, you don't understand how to do that, we do have some really good examples that I can share with you. And I am very happy to do a Teams call with you and we can talk it through. I think that would be really great. I would like to hear from people about the carved biomorphic abstractions. Do you want me to, and I will need to hear from people fairly quickly, do you want me to extend the due date for a week and we'll talk about other stuff, or should we talk about the stuff that is being turned in? What would you like me to do? Just let me know as soon as you can. And then we also have the PowerPoint presentation due next week, and we want to talk a little bit about that. It looks like the next big project we're going to be doing is the texture and light, and I think that I will be talking about that next week as well. And that's also when I want to go over paper mache for the sculptures that you guys have done. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is the the structure and skin pieces that people have turned in. Another thing we're going to be talking about today is the carved biomorphic abstraction pieces and go into that into a bit more detail. Then we are also going to be talking about the artist research PowerPoint presentations and anything else that people have questions about. So the very first thing is I want to share with you the structure with skin, and I want to reiterate something that's uh, I I work with the incarcerated youth in the area, and we're working on some projects where people are doing the very best of their ability their ability, and one of the things that kind of upset me a little bit is that somebody came through who didn't know what we were doing and started critiquing what they were, well, they thought they were critiquing what the work was in front of the students that were working on it. And they were saying things like that line needs to be straighter and these lines need to be more solid and this and that. Oh, that has to have more color. And what frustrated me a little bit was that I, I don't know what the person was comparing things to because these kids had never painted before in their lives. So, from a very practical standpoint, what they were doing was the best that they had ever done. And this person was pointing out what they saw as flaws in the best work that these students had ever done. It had the benefit of being very honest. Everything had been designed by them with the skills that they had available to them. And I still think that they're doing remarkable work. And I think that that's one of the dangers when we talk about critique, and this is an assignment that I'm going to touch on as well. When we talk about critique, one of the dangers is that um, we think that that means we need to point out areas to improve. And when we're doing critiques of artwork and we're not trying to evaluate it in relationship to assignment parameters and expectations, like I'm doing, then then critique is more a process of how closely can we observe what we are looking at, and how can we best articulate what we are seeing. How are we responding to it? Talking about, we want to talk about how we interact with the artwork, how we embrace it, whether or not it makes us feel comfortable or uncomfortable. There can be very beautiful things that make us feel horrible. Uh, I think it was Asclepius, he was a Greek playwright, who said that one of the things that's important about telling stories is the catharsis it engenders. The desire to change and become a better person. And sometimes that process can be painful. I've seen work that when I first encountered it years earlier, it looked horrible. I thought it was terrible, made me want to throw up. And then years later, with life experience and understanding, I come back to it and I recognize, oh wow, that I can see what that artist is trying to say. I understand now, or I appreciate it better. I respect it at the very least. Sometimes a good analogy is to think about things like how many languages can you read? Most of us just read one language or maybe two if we're really lucky. But the books that are written in other languages are still valid and valuable as books. We just can't access them because we don't have that skill set. And sometimes when we encounter work that's new to us, artwork that's new to us, if our knee-jerk reaction is not to like it and we'd feel out of place because we don't understand it, it may very well be because we don't have the background or the visual language to be able to appreciate and understand it. And I think that not being able to appreciate that that is even part of the process, I think makes it so that a lot of people get very uncomfortable when they're required to talk about art, or they feel so uncomfortable they don't want to encounter it at all. And when they hear art as a word, they're just afraid that they're going to be embarrassed by it because whatever they say will be wrong. And I think that's really, I think it's sad. I had a young person in one of my classes last semester who said that going through a museum, through a gallery, she saw something that she really liked. And somebody asked what she thought about it. And so she said, very honestly, exactly what she thought about it. And one of the curators of the gallery came up and told her how wrong she was. And she said, that was a couple years ago, and she hasn't wanted to deal with anything that was art related since then. And then because she had to take the class, she came to the art class. And I don't know, I think stuff like that is really disappointing. So when we do look at artwork, I don't want everybody to just go bend over backwards saying only nice things. That really doesn't do an awful lot, but we can always frame honesty in nice words and polite words. We don't have to say, instead of, oh, I hate that, we can say, I don't really understand that, because both of those are equally true. Or say, if it feels unbalanced and unfinished, we can say, well, it has a raw quality to it that I just don't feel comfortable with. And then you're communicating an awful lot more than just the words that evaluate your own emotions that you use for yourself. You're communicating in such a way that other people outside of your mind can understand what you're saying. And what's really fascinating to me is that when we do take a moment and stop and reflect and start imagining how somebody else was thinking about whatever it is that they're building or that they built, what's interesting to me is that a lot of the times that helps us to bypass those initial knee-jerk reactions we might have and recognize, oh, this actually is a lot better than I expected or that I thought. And I think that it is really valuable. That trait allows us to make new friends. It allows us to enjoy new foods. It allows us to travel to new countries because if we are able to set aside those initial irritations long enough that we can start the process of, at the very least, appreciating somebody else's effort, then that opens up the door to us not only appreciating it, but actually enjoying whatever it is that we're encountering. When I was in Iran, I was at one restaurant and I tried something that I'd never even considered wanting to eat before. It was a jasmine rice, which was really good. But on top of it there were two kind of gravy stewed chicken things. One was very, very sour. Just if you can imagine something like pomegranates and lemon juice or something, but it was quite sour. And the other one, both of these are stewed chicken. The other one was something that was almost cloyingly sweet. It was like eating Tootsie Rolls for dinner. And that one was, believe it or not, like prunes and apricots, something like that. Both of them by themselves just made my mouth want to reject whatever was going in. But when you mix these things together, the two stewed chicken um, dishes with the rice, all the flavor would come together in your mouth at the same time. There'd be a little bit of savory with the rice, and then the sugar or the sweetness and the sourness kind of blended together, and it made something so that everything was perfectly balanced. But you had to take the effort to step past your initial negative reaction and just let somebody else teach you how to eat it so that you put everything into your mouth at the same time. And it was absolutely amazing. Anyway, that's something to think about moving on. But I was upset enough by that one gentleman's reaction to the piece that I took one of the caretakers aside. I said, this person made this comment in front of the young man that we're working on this project. Please make sure that the young man understand how much we really honestly appreciate their efforts. And he promised that he would, but I just I thought that was kind of sad because the person did not take the time to see past their initial uh, reaction. So I want to share with if you are one of the people that are having an issue with the annotated bibliography, uh, please get a hold of me and let me know. There's a couple people that have been really working hard on it and doing it multiple times to get it right. And if we were in a live person setting, if I was there with you, then I could go over and and walk you through the questions and stuff like that. But since I'm not, we can still do that over FaceTime or um, Teams call. Just either text me or email me and let me know you'd like to talk through it, and then we can do it. And um, what may happen is we'll talk through it. You'll do an initial foray, and then we'll talk a second time so I can walk you through what needs to be done to get it just right. And every single person who has taken the time to do that has come out with an absolutely stellar annotated bibliography. There's something else that I want to mention, and we are getting to the point where there's enough things I think that are showing up. You can look at houses that people have done. You can look at wire sculptures that people have done, and now we have several structures with skin that people have done. And if you want to wait, a couple weeks, that's fine too to see what else gets uploaded. But one of the assignments coming up at the end of the term is the uh, critique, where you demonstrate Feldman's model and of critique as it relates to somebody's art done for this class in this class, and you do another one that was for something that you made yourself for this class in this semester. So these two critiques are critiquing my own work and critiquing someone else's work, or the self-review and the peer review. Both of these need to be about I'm going to open this one up, the artistic critique, my own work. Both of these are going to be 3 to 5 minutes, and that's it. You submit it in an MOV, MP4, or WAV file. And as soon as I start receiving them, I will share them with the whole class. Now, you do not need, and I don't want you to show yourself. You don't need to show yourself. You don't, and I don't want you to show yourself on this. What, and it doesn't need to be your voice, but it does need to be your critique. And what I have had people do is they will find an image from one of the discussion boards that show the artwork that we've done. They'll do a screenshot of that image. They'll show it. They'll open it up, and then if you go over to, I don't know honestly what it looks like in your Canvas interface, but if you go to Microsoft Education, this has an access to Teams meetings here, and you can make your own Teams meeting and just start it and then record it. And after you do, and just have it show, instead of you, just do a screen share and have it show an image of the artwork that you're critiquing, yours or somebody else's. And again, it only has to be 3 to 5 minutes long. It doesn't have to be your voice, but it does need to be your words. And what I've had people do when they do have social anxiety and they can't film their voice, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. I used to hate that, but in my own family, uh, there's somebody who really can't do that. They have to have somebody else read their stuff for them, and that's totally fine. Just write out the critique as you read it. Time it to make sure that it's 3 to 5 minutes long. Right, it's right there, right up here is where I say that. It needs to be 3 to 5 minutes long, and you can either put it into an AI voice engine that will read it out loud for you, or you can have a friend or a family member read it. Well, have that uh, Teams meeting recording a screen share of the image of the artwork that you're critiquing. And while that is going on, have somebody read the script that you made. That is the critique. And again, that critique, this is a page that has several examples of it. And I just um, click the link there that you saw me click. And this has several examples, and you can see they're between 3 to 5 minutes. We don't want them to be shorter than 3 minutes. We don't want them to be longer than 5 minutes. And what that means is you're spending about 45 seconds to less than a minute on each of the 4 steps of the critique process. And the critique questions, and I'm going to share this tab as well. The critique questions are the description, and you don't read any of these questions out loud. You just answer them while you're looking at the artwork. What is the content? What does it look like? How big or wide or small or color it is? Answer those questions inside your head. I mean, ask those questions inside your head, but answer them out loud or in the writing that you do to have somebody else read it. For the description, analysis, interpretation, and evaluation. Each of these have several questions under them. And generally, if you do not talk really quickly, as you're doing this, you will fill up that 3 minute time easily. And you can, keep a clock there with you. If you go through description, you realize you need to talk a little bit more, add some more description to it. If you're going through analysis and you need to analyze more, try to just talk about how you imagine the person made it. Same thing with interpretation and evaluation. This is not a difficult assignment. I think the biggest challenge that people have, though, as artists is a lot of times we feel uncomfortable hearing our own voices. And that's why I want you, if um, if that's something that you don't want to do, hear your own voice or have your own voice recorded, that is fine. Write it out so the time frame is compatible with the assignment, which is 3 to 5 minutes. And like I said, have somebody, a living person or an AI tool, read what you've written, and that will do it. Mention this. Um, the tools. This says to do date of May 6th. That's when you needed to read it. And then these assignments, doing the critiques, they are due July 17th, which is about 3 or 4 weeks away. But you will get extra credit if you do it by the end of June. So there are some artworks that you can already up. But again, the big thing is if it's your own work, it needs to be one of the artworks that was completed for this class this semester. And when you do a peer critique of somebody else's work, it needs to be one of the works posted in discussion in one of the discussion boards of an assignment for this class this semester. And I've got to be really clear about that because I have had people, um, they did a study abroad in Europe or whatever the previous semester, and they were excited about some artwork there, and they were upset that they didn't get credit for the assignment because the assignment has to be artwork done for this class this semester. Okay, so we talked about that. We've talked about the annotated bibliography. And I think that would like to talk about the uh, structure with skin, go through and look at those, really the 5 that have been turned in, talk about what each one is doing well and how each one needs to be changed a bit to better fit the assignment parameters. And then after that, we'll talk about the biomorphic carving, and I will talk about the PowerPoint recording. So let's see. Okay, let's see if we can get this. I wonder if, oh, we probably, I don't think you can see that. Okay, so give me a second here. There we go. Okay, so this is one. Some of the things that I really like about this is that it is obvious what the modules are, and you see that there is some skin on it. But one of the things we talked directly about last week is that we cannot do this as a wall, a line, or a tower. It needs to engage all 3 directions, which is um, height, width, and depth. So it needs to engage the volume around it. So I like these modules, but they're only a ½ inch, 3/4 inch deep, not very deep. They need to be 3-dimensional because that will help you to do a better, make a 3-dimensional object that engages the volume of space. I like the way they photographed it. I think this is really a good photo. I think that turned out really well. The issue that or the thing that makes it pulls us away from actually fulfilling the assignment, there's a couple things, and one will help fulfill the assignment, and the other one needs to be changed. The one that needs to be changed is, notice that this is in a line. It's like a wall. It's not a 3-dimensional, it's not a structure that engages 3-dimensional volume around it. Yes, it is 3-dimensional. It does have height, width, and depth, but it does not engage the space around it, the volume of space around it. It just acts like a wall. And what I would recommend on this is I would have made the modules so that they were closer to cubes, because that would help to fully, that would kind of force you, unless you were building a tower specifically, it would make it a lot easier to engage the volume of space around you. So for this one, what I would recommend, I do love how they've done the skin. I think that that is very interesting. What I would do is I would separate all six of these first. And then I would start thinking of ways of putting these together so that they stick out in every direction you can imagine. And I'm thinking that one way to do that would be to take two of these and maybe this one and combine them at the bottom on one of these edges so they are facing in different directions. Then wouldn't even do it edge to edge. I would do a corner to an edge. And then I would start putting the others on two at a time in purposely different directions. And that would make this, I think, very interesting. So maybe these two right here in the middle, if they're separated out, maybe this bottom corner of the one on the right of the middle could remain attached, and then the one on the right is rotated down a little bit, so the bottom right corner of it touches the ground. Then maybe these two are rotated maybe 90 degrees, and this point right here between them, so you're changing the axis of them, you're changing the rotation of them. Maybe that is attached to the top where these two come together, and then do the same thing the opposite way with these two. So you have, if you look down from the top, you see them fanning out in different directions. And from the side, you can see that it's engaging space differently. So I think this is the module I think is really interesting. And I really like the module. I love how they've done the skin. But in order to make this fill the parameters of the assignment, the six need to be attached differently. Excuse me. Now, last year, another student did something rather similar to this, not the same design, but they made a wall with the modules that they created. And we ended up having a short video visit so they could understand what I was talking about and they could show me different things that they wanted to try and we could talk it through. And they ended up getting a perfect score on the sculpture. So this is a really good work with the um, modules. But as far as putting it together so it engages three-dimensional space, that needs more work. Now, this is a really good one that does all the things that we're looking for. I think it looks like to me that the modules are based on two tetrahedrons kind of rotating around each other. And I think that that's really fascinating. So we have a tetrahedron of toothpicks here that shares one point with a tetrahedron that has paper on three of the four sides. And then that seems to be the module. And I think that's really an interesting module. Now notice that this person putting it together, they didn't put them together in a line. And when they stacked them up, oh, and by the way, the photo on this is really, really nicely done. When they stacked them up, they kind of changed the angle, how they interacted with each other. And I really, really like that. Um, they changed where the tip of the two tetrahedra point as well. Like these two bottom ones, the tip point to each other, and then the one right above that, the tip of one points to the base of another one, and then another one, the tip points down, and then as you add more, it changes a little bit. Like this one, the tip points out to the left. The top one, it points up to the left as well. And the one on the top right here points away from us. I think those, so the way that they're oriented shifts with each one. We don't have a tower. They are stacked, but with the changing orientation, it forces it away from a predictable tower shape. And I think it does a really good job of engaging the volume of space around it because the shapes are so unusual, the forms. Now, with the paper, I think this is really an intriguing idea where you have one tetrahedron that doesn't have any paper on it at all, and then the one that it is around has paper on three of the four sides. All of them are like that. but you see that the papers are change colors. They're use the idea of the complements, and you see that orange and blue, but they change colors. They're not always the same, and that helps us to see how they're oriented differently. And I think it doesn't feel to me that the structure is too weighty. Doesn't feel like the paper kind of hides everything. I think it's here the paper kind of acts to frame the wood, the sticks. Here it almost does a similar thing, and then but part of it is kind of hiding the on the right hand side at the bottom. Part of the paper is hiding a little bit behind it, and you can see each of them are like that. Each of these pairs, some hides, some reveal, some frame. I think they did a really good job balancing all those things that we talked about. So I think this really does a good job of satisfying all the uh, parameters and expectations of the assignment. Now I think that this is a beautiful first step. It looks a little bit too much like the sample that's on the right. I'm not gonna say too much, but it looks like the sample on the right of those three that I had shown you. And I'll pull that picture up really quick here. And you guys will see exactly what I mean. So I'm going to stop sharing that and switch to another view. Notice how three of these do a good job of activating the volume of space around them. But this one, one of the things I critiqued about, I said I did not feel it fulfilled the parameters of the assignment like we were talking about, is that instead of three-dimensional modules, everything is a flat tetrahedron. And it ends up looking almost like a shed snakeskin, which I think is really cool. But it does not fulfill the expectations of the assignment or the parameters because it's not a three-dimensional geometric module. And it's a really good start. And I will tell you, um, I had somebody 2 semesters ago who worked very hard. What they ended up doing is they created a whole lot of these triangles. The triangles that they made were out of popsicle sticks and paper. And at first, what they did is they just stacked them up so it was all flat. We talked about three dimensionality and stuff. They went back, they took it apart, restructured it, and the triangles were going in a lot of different directions, so they almost look like scales on an object, but they still hadn't created three-dimensional geometric modules. And so they went back, took it apart, used all those triangles they had carefully made to put together three-dimensional modules, and then when they reassembled it, it turned out really well. I think that there's a lot of really good triangles here. What I would say is separate, and this is photo again is really well done, but you can see it is kind of drifting along the bottom instead of really being empowered and allowing itself to activate three-dimensional volume of space. So take these triangles, put them together in tetrahedra or octahedra, and make 5 to 8 of those. I would say if you're going to have a relatively small module or a relatively simple module like a four-sided tetrahedra, then make 8 of them. So you will need to make more triangles and then play with stacking them together and seeing what you're doing. It also looks like to me that almost all of these have paper on them, which we need to balance the paper, the skin, and the structure. And when you only are working with triangles rather than three-dimensional um, objects, it makes it difficult. So what I would recommend is make two for each tetrahedron, make two triangles that are just out of toothpicks and two of them using these paper ones and put that together so you have each of the modules have two sides of paper and two sides that are open. And then start stacking them in different ways and see what that looks like. Glue them together and maybe uh, some of them have edge-to-edge contact. Maybe some of them have a point coming to an edge. Maybe some of them overlap a little bit. Think about those kinds of things as you restructure this. And again, I'm more than happy to talk with you on a video call. I think this is another one that is really going in a very good direction. and I see that there are a couple modules here that are true tetrahedra, but this at the bottom, coming to our right, and at the top pointing away from us, those are not, they're just triangles. And what I would recommend with this one is build a few more modules so that you have that 5 to 8 minimum with the tetrahedra. Some of them put skin on some of the faces, black skin or white skin. Looks like this is has white skin, and then stack them up so they activate space around them. This only is active in one plane, and that plane is diagonal to us, but it's still only active in one plane. And we need to have them pointing out at different directions. So I think this is a really strong start as well. All these are good starts. This one I think is really fascinating. And I really love the energy that has gone into this. I think it is amazing. One of the things I do not see, though, is a consistent repeated uh, geometric module. And if I'm seeing it wrong, because it looks like there's a lot of tetrahedra and then there's other things thrown in as well. I did say that uh, you could distort them a little bit. You do need 5 to 8, and they need to obviously relate to each other in shape and form, but some of them could be bigger and smaller. Some of them could be distorted a little bit. I did say that. But this looks to me like we have a couple strong tetrahedra shapes, and then the rest of it are not the repeated modules. So I think this one needs to, I need this, I think that this person needs to pick a geometric module and make several of them, 5 to 8, like we talked about, and then see how they stack together. And I think that this is a really interesting photo. My only concern is this line, this horizontal line coming through. If you can get to the photo lab, that's great, but you can see that the two of the other people in this at least two of the other photos were not taken at the photo lab. They were done at home. So we can do that. And if you are taking this in front of white poster board, then I would say don't have the seam show. Use a big enough piece of poster board that you can curve it behind the object so you don't have the seam show. So that does become something of a distraction. But overall, this is really, really interesting, going in a very strong direction. Again, this person does need to pick a module, but you can see the way that they've stacked things together, they are activating the volume of space all around. So once you do pick a module, make the module repeating. You can even use this photo as a reference for how to put it together, but I think that you really do a good job activating the volume of space around it. I do think it needs a couple more pieces of paper, and I think once you have a module established and repeated, that may give you an opportunity to see where in each module you can add more paper, and that would probably solve that problem. Well, I'm sure certain that it does. So I think this is a really strong uh, initial work on this assignment. Oh, and it looks like that's all of them. All right. So I'm really pleased with what people are doing. And again, if we were together in one of our class periods together, I would go through each one with you and talk about this. Um, if you understand what's going on, that's great. Remake this, resubmit it. Let me know. If you need to talk to me, let's set up a time to do a video call so we can talk it through. All right. So that turned those are looking really very interesting. Okay. All right. The next thing I know, I said the next thing I wanted to talk about was the biomorphic abstraction. I'm thinking before that, I do want to introduce you to the PowerPoint presentation and let you know what to expect with that. It's not due for another couple of weeks, but I want you to at least have it in the back of your head. Okay. All right, here we go. So if we look at this, the artist research PowerPoint is due um, the 28th, which is 2 weeks away. And I think that, if you can work on it, start working on it soon, it'll make it a lot easier on you. And I do include a couple things with, there's a video that talks about how to make a PowerPoint with narration so that you can record it as a video. Let's see. I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint presentation that I did, and I'll just show you. We should be able to record it so that you can't. I'll show you one way of doing it a little bit, and then I will also talk about an easy way to do it as well. And then we'll talk about what this subject actually entails. So or I'm sorry, what this assignment actually entails. I'm going to show this to you. If you make your PowerPoint presentation, it's going to be this one, it's going to be 5 to 7 minutes long, and it is on the artist that you picked that you did your annotated bibliography. Now, so I made this PowerPoint for a presentation I gave at another university, and I didn't include a lot of words because it was mostly me talking. And I really liked this image. I found it online, and I thought it was hilarious because the caption was, "You get what you pay for," or somebody asking, "Oh, can you do the same thing but cheaper?" And all of you are professional artists. All of you know what your worth is, and I'm sure that all of you have encountered that kind of perspective, which is just so frustrating when somebody just honestly does not realize how offensive it is when they undervalue the effort that you make. But anyway, so this is, but if you look at your PowerPoint thing, and all of you have access to this, being a registered student at UVU, you have the word suite of different programs you have access to, and one of those is PowerPoint. If you go to record here, you can actually save it as a video, and you can save the show. And what you do is you start recording it as a video with a working microphone so you can record yourself talking about each of the things. And if you go to YouTube, say, how do I record a video of my PowerPoint? It will walk you through and tell you how to do that. And if you export it to video, it will give you options for doing one of those three file types. We call it MOV, WAV, or MP4. Now, I personally do not do that. What I do for my recordings is I will make my PowerPoint like this with the slides. And you can see that I'm doing the window sharing right now. But how I do it, how I record it into a video is I will open up, if you go to your uh, Canvas interface, I'm sorry, not Canvas interface, but if you go to the area, let's see, I'm sorry, I know what it's called, but my words are escaping me, so I'll just show you. Okay, if you go over here on your Canvas interface and go to Microsoft Education, that will give you the option of, and you may have to fiddle around with some of the tabs and stuff, but it will give you the option of creating a meeting. And in that meeting, you have the option of recording yourself, just like I do for these meetings that we have. And as you record yourself, you can do a screen share so nobody sees you. You can do a screen share of those PowerPoint slides that you made um, for your presentation. And that is one of the easiest ways to record and make this. And what I really love, one of the things that I really love about UVU is that the tech support folks are amazingly responsive. If you have any issues at all, you can talk to them. But there's also videos on YouTube where you research and say, hey, my school gives me access to Teams. How can I record a screen share presentation? and YouTube will give you, 50 bazillion different videos to demonstrate how to do that. Now that one, it's interesting. Okay. I am having a hard time opening this up now. Go down to 7C. Now for this, the artist research PowerPoint presentation, notice I say this will not be difficult. I say 7 to 10 slides. I think 7 slides is going to be the minimum, and I would not do more than 10. It needs to be 5 to 8 minutes long. Do not make it over 10 minutes, please. I am saying this, I think I mentioned it before, because I did have one of my classes, this was a couple years ago. Somebody had just gotten back from a trip in New York. They were so excited about different stuff that their presentation on their artist lasted 34 minutes. Please don't do that. That would be absolutely horrible. Remember, I've got to take all these and upload them to our YouTube channel so that everybody can see them. And 5 to 8 minutes is plenty of time. Now, the way that we make this is you have your 5 sources in your annotated bibliography. And so what I would do is go back to those sources and find images that relate to each of those 5 sources. And that you may be doing a screenshot of a paused YouTube frame, or YouTube video. You could do screenshots of images or find other images that relate to each of the articles that you saw, and put each of those and put those images that you screenshot or find uh, into a slide for each of the five cite each of the 5 sources that you have, and that gives you 5 slides. And then one slide is going to be your opening slide, where you have the name of the artist that you're talking about, and then the last slide is going to be a list of all 5 of those sources that you created, and that list you will get because you have the correctly formatted citations from your 5 sources in your annotated bibliography. So you'll just copy and paste all 5 of those into a single slide, and that will be your 7th slide. All right. So once again, first slide is going to be your artist name and a picture of one of their works or them or both. Your second slide is going to be one of your 5 cited sources that you went to. And on that slide, you're just going to talk about what that source talked about. And um, so you're basically doing a combination of your summary and reflection paragraph, and you're just speaking it out. Then your third slide is going to be one of the other 5 sources that you talked about, again, with images from that source and your just talking about through your reflections and summary paragraphs that you wrote. You complete that for all 5 of your sources. And that brings you, so the 5th source is going to be slide number 6. And then slide number 7, you're going to show your citations all in a list, your 5 citations that you did for your annotated bibliography. I don't know if I have, okay, I don't have that. I was looking for an example of that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to pull up an example from an earlier class that somebody did for this. So let me see if I can find one that's only about 3.5 minutes long. I'm sorry, 5.5 minutes long. Okay, and this person, okay, I want to share this with you, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. We're going to see an example of this. And this person, they did not do this specifically pointing out this is my first source, this is my second source, or anything like that. They just talked through it. So let me share this with you. And I want to show you an example of this. So this is something that is due in 2 weeks. But the artist that they picked is Sharon Nishat. She is a Persian artist that is in my opinion, absolutely astounding. So we're going to go ahead and watch this, and I will pause every once in a while to walk you through what they're doing. And we're going to get to the last, and so we're about going to be about 5.5 minutes or so.
Hi, for my presentation, I will be doing it on Sharon Nashat. Sharon Nashat was born in 1957.
Now, we don't have to see the whole thing, but what I want you to see is that this person did not make slides necessarily in PowerPoint. Maybe they did, but they were struggling a little bit with getting their computer to do the screen sharing that they were hoping for. So this is actually recorded on their phone, and they're taking pictures of each of the things that they're talking about. And so, and the way that they've done their slides is they've made the slides on their computer and then recorded it with their phone. And this person did call out their sources after describing who Sharon Nishat was. They described each of their sources. And as we go on, we can see different things that they do. Source 2, Gladstone Gallery. Okay, so and this is just bullet points that they want to talk about in that. So they're just describing each of those things that they saw in that sort that they encountered in source number 2. Source number 3 is the same thing. So this person did not you don't have to make a super flashy thing. And they did not make a flashy presentation. They worked with the tools that they had, and it turned out really well. And then it talks about each of the sources that she talks about. She gives the title of the source, and notice the bullet points are just helping her to remember what to talk about regarding that source. We're going to go on just a little bit more here. And then this is all of their sources. And this is what they've done here is put the sources down that they had used specifically for their annotated bibliography. And if your annotated bibliography, you turn that in and everything's just right, you put it in the same order that you have it, and you put it in the same way you've written it down, and you create one slide that has all 5 of your sources. Now, for this one, what this person is missing is they don't have the access on date on that first source. And this last source, alphabetically, it should be before this fourth source. So these two should be switched. This one should have the access on date. So, if you want to, you could, that last page, you can just show it to me and I can double check it. But in this case, they made the video and I just asked them to change this, edit it so it's correct, and send it to me as a separate file, which they did. So they didn't have to remake the whole video. And you see, this is 5 minutes and 26 seconds. So they did an excellent, excellent job of making this exactly the way I'm described. And on this, I do give, I talk about it here. It needs to be under 10 minutes. And I give an example of a couple different slides. And there's also, this is a link to how to make a PowerPoint with narration and record it. And then this has a couple other videos of examples like we just talked that also demonstrate how students did this. And you just click on those links and it'll take you to video examples of what we're looking for. And if you have any questions, you can also just ask me, email me, and I'll go over it again next week as well. But if you click on one of these links, this is what it takes. This is one on James Turrell. This is 5 minutes, 6 seconds. So it fits within that 5 to 8 minute time frame, which you want to do. And then the other one takes us to this recording where the person is talking about Rachel Whiteread, and which I think is really, she's a very, very interesting sculpture, where Dahosa does makes buildings out of fabric. She casts the inside of rooms with concrete. So I think it's polar opposite Dahosa, and I think she does an amazing job. But so that shows you we have the two examples um, as well that you can look at and see how students did them. So again, the 7 slides would be an initial one where you introduce the artist that you're talking about. 5, where each of the 5 address one of the sources that you used. And then the 7th slide, the last slide, is going to be just a slide that just has the 5 sources that you've done in alphabetical order in correct MLA format, and each of them have to have the access on date at the end. So I hope that that helps understand what's going on with that. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about today is the carved biomorphic abstraction. I did share with you last time images of the lion man or the lion being. I don't know if necessarily was intended to be male. My suspicion is that it was supposed to be masculine uh, because of some of the anatomy. But there's videos here that I hope you all take the time to watch where you're just looking at the forms. You don't necessarily have to listen to them. I just want you to see up close what they are. Another really good example is if you look up um, Paleolithic or Neolithic Venus forms, you'll also see a really good selection of the biomorphic abstraction. And instead of being a lion man, an anthropomorphized animal, it is an abstraction of the divine female form, which I think is really interesting. And then I shared the PowerPoint with you where we talked about um, abstract or realistic to non-objective. And for, here's the naturalistic or realistic. And we go through the process of stylizing, turning into patterns, and then we start abstracting. So then we look at P. Mondrian, where this last one, even though it was inspired by the same object as this first painting, this spans about 15 years, I believe. This last one is so simplified and so abstracted that it's almost impossible to know what it is. So we talked about that last week. Now, I we have changed the material that we use quite a bit. Um, we were doing this out of plaster. I was having everybody carve plaster sculptures. I think the foam is so much easier to deal with, other than the mess. It is quite messy. And the easiest way to clean up the foam after you're done is have a spray bottle that has a mist feature on it, mist everything down, and then sweep it up. And that will really help to mitigate the static clean with the lightweight foam. And then this second video right here, I'm kind of demonstrating a little bit about making it. See if I can. Okay, I'm not going to force you to endure more of my voice. Now, I wish I had been smart enough to set up some sort of tripod or something so you could see the camera, or have the camera over my shoulder so you can see what I was carving. I'm quiet because I'm trying to see if I can find. Anyway, watch this thing. Watch this whole thing. It's almost an hour and a half long. And right in here, so about 20 minutes in to about an hour and a half, and an hour in, that's when I really, you see a lot of the carving. and we're using the different blades that we've got. We're using the rasps that we have, and just different things like that to do the carving. This is funny. The way the sampling is done in this. Okay, there we go. And you can kind of should see that I'm developing a shape here. Now, the best way to do this is to hold the block in front, get an idea of what you want to carve, but hold the block in front of you so you see one of the flat faces. Draw a shape on that flat face and then carve all the way down. Turn it to in another direction so you see another thing that used to be a flat face. Carve all the way down on that, or something like that, so that and you do that with all six of the faces, and by the time you're done, you get well, actually, not by the time you're done. By the time you get to the third face, you start feeling your way along, and then you kind of pull away from what you were planning. But what we want to do is make sure that what we carve does not have any of the original flat faces of that block that we started with. Everything needs to be carved. It needs to be organic. That's what biomorphic means. It's moving life. It needs to feel organic. If you're using the roots of teeth, if you're using the base of an ear, if you're using the petals of a succulent plant or a cactus or the base of a fruit, any of those things, you're using all of that, putting it together and generating new forms that are based on organic components that you see in the real world. And then once you carve it like this, you have hasps and sandpaper to sand it down. And in this, I think, let's see, right here, I start talking about paper mache. So just watch about the first 50 minutes of this, give you an idea of how to do the carving. And this is the background where we're introduced to a lot of different artists. Okay, Barbara Hepworth. This was working when I double checked it last week. So that's a little aggravating. If you guys notice that things aren't working, let me know so I can go back and fix it. But I'll find another video of Barbara Hepworth so we can put that in there. What I'm doing right now is just pulling up a couple of videos. Okay, I've seen another video that I think I'm gonna put in. And I'll show you. It's this one, the Tate Sculpture Garden. I think that'll be really cool. And so I'll put this video in um, for that, so you have a better uh, video for Barbara Hepworth. In fact, while you guys are here, I'm gonna try to do that right now. And for whatever reason, sometimes when I try to edit these, um, the system, for whatever reason, the system doesn't seem to work really well. So it's just kind of frustrating to me. Okay. So this is 6 minutes and 57 seconds. Okay. Oh, okay. Pardon me. Okay, so we're going to change this one out. See if this works. And this is, again, it is a 7-minute video. All right. So see if that works. You'll have a video that, okay, Barbara Hepworth. Yes, that's his. Okay, excellent. This is what we want to look at. Okay, just double check that's the right one. Yep, looks like it. So this is has a short bio, but also has images of her work. Henry Moore is another one of these artists. Sama Noguchi, Constantine Brancusi, done some really amazing stuff. So definitely check these out. Watch each of them. This is something that I noticed too. Somebody submitted their hours for the last week or for last module, and they did not include watching any of the videos for the background stuff or any of the other things that they needed to do. You know, they didn't list the time that it took to do the quiz, and they did not list the time it took to make the artist uh, review essay that everybody has to write. So, and I gave them partial points and I said, hey, include the rest of your time. You need to include for each of the work logs, you need to include the time you spent for every element of that particular module. So, on this, we have a total of 5 paragraphs, and you need to embed an image of the artist work that you're discussing. And just follow through. A paragraph is going to be 2 to 5 sentences, and a sentence on each of those things does not cut the mustard. You have to have 2 to 5 actual paragraphs. So, um, and if you don't, then I will point that out. So you can go back and fix it and get more points. And then we did talk about the quiz last week. And several people have turned in their quiz already. I have graded it, and you guys have been doing a really good job on the quiz. So excellent. Then talks about the Picard biomorphic abstraction. We have a couple links here that I want you to go to, and there's short videos about how to do this and how to carve it. Now, one thing that you will notice on this is most of these have to do, there is some about carving foam, but some of them are also other materials like wood, plaster. Even though the tools you use as you carve are going to be different, the process of removing material is going to be very similar. And if it's hard material that you're working with, it's going to be more difficult. If it's soft material, you'd hope that it would be easier, but it's not always easier. If something does break, it can be a pain in the butt. But with foam, we are also going to be covering these with paper mache later on. So if something breaks with your foam, what you can do is repair it by gluing it together. Don't use like a plastic cement or something like that. If you use a plastic cement, a lot of times it will make the foam melt away. So you want to use, I know it sounds ridiculous, but something like a wood glue or Gorilla Glue, test it on a chunk, make sure that it doesn't dissolve it. And what I usually use if I have to glue the foam together is I'll put toothpicks on either side and smush the foam together so the toothpicks kind of hold it. And that's okay with this because once you sand everything down, we're going to be applying paper mache and it will cover up whatever accidents and issues you may have had in the construction of the biomorphic carving. I want you to pay attention to these shapes. They are very different. No two of these sculptures are the same, but they have a commonality where they all look organic. And that's what I want you to be thinking about. And your object where we're applying paper mache, and then at the very end, we're going to be applying color and texture to it and completely making it explode with color and texture. So they're not going to be white like this. All right. So those are all the things, and I have even a clever little video on paper mache. I'm laughing at myself because honestly, nobody else will. So I hope that really helps to clarify the different elements that are coming up of this new module that we're working on. And I wanted to introduce you to the artist research PowerPoint as well. As many of you can as possible, please work on this and at least turn in something. Hopefully by now everybody realizes that when you turn something in that is not, or if you miss turning something in that is not your final grade, you always have an opportunity to resubmit. Take that to heart and resubmit, please. No, I'm looking for stuff that we can talk about next week. Look, so please turn in whatever you can. And then we will also be talking about the idea of the texture and light assignment that is also coming up um, in as beginning of July. Texture and light, we're going to be going over color and physical textures. So visual and physical, as well as physical textures, and how that relates to sculpture. One of the things we talked about that I wanted to just review is um, the share your structure with skin. When you go to that, that is if you are having issues with accessing the textbook, that this is what we're also using so that you can talk to each other regarding issues about the textbook. And if any of you have had problems getting access to it through the library and successes getting access to it through the library, let me know so we can talk about that so that other students know what you went through to get what you needed. All right, so here we have there is a couple replies. Caleb started a thread. This is where they're just talking about that. This is where you use this to talk about, when are you going to be up on campus? When are you, and you can communicate with each other through this. All right. Regarding access to the textbook. And again, all of the quizzes, you can take them as many times as you want to get until you get a perfect score. And I don't want anybody walking out of this class without perfect scores on all their quizzes because there's no reason not to. You can do it. Or perfect scores on attendance. Everybody can do that. So just be mindful of that. All righty. That's all that I needed to talk about today. Again, I apologize for you having to endure my droning voice, but Caleb wasn't here. If you are able to show up live, mention that when you do your attendance, when you turn in the 5 things that you learned for attendance. And when you turn that in and mention that, I will give you extra credit. So please, if you can show up on Wednesday evenings, please do that. It just makes it a lot easier for everybody going through the class discussion. Again, thank you very much. And for also, again, please remember if you need to talk to me, please communicate with me, set up, and you can either do it through email or texting my cell phone. Talk to me so that we can visit about um, a time to do a FaceTime or a Teams meeting call so that I can answer whatever questions that you have while you're holding up the object that you're working on. We can talk about it. If you are texting me, please remember to include the name of the class and your own name so I know who you are. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. It is Father's Day this weekend, and oh, it's the weekend as well. So that's 2 things that are good. Hopefully. Um, uh, just be mindful. We are getting into hot weather. Uh, make sure that you have water bottles with you if you're going to be walking around outside. This is Utah, and it does get very dry. If you guys need any help, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to work with you. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you guys next week.